Hey everyone, we're back for another install for you. We're going to be swapping out a set of busted hubs. We're going to be upgrading them to the Yukon Hardcore locking hub. It's only going to take a few basic hand tools, some high pressure grease, a few shop towels, and a little bit of time. So follow along. We're going to swap these busted hubs out. We'll show you what went wrong with them and why we've gone with the Yukon Hardcore locking hubs. Alright, first things first. What we need to do to begin with is take these old broken locking hubs out of here. There's 6 bolts, an Allen tip driver on a 3/8 inch drive ratchet. Very easy to get these parts out of here. Go ahead and bust these loose, and once those are all loose, many times you can just take them out by hand. Alright, with these 6 bolts out, this mechanism, the locking mechanism itself, will just pull directly out, so we'll go ahead and pull it out and see what we've got going on. Alright, we've got the broken parts here. This is what failed on this locking hub. These 3 pieces should be stuck on the inside of this locking mechanism here, so when it spins, it would actually pressurize and push this in on the shaft. So we figured out what the problem was with the old hub. Now we're just going to remove the rest of this stuff so we can get ready to put the new hub in. So what we have here holding this unit in, we've got a little snap ring. So that has to come out. Sometimes they can be a little bit of a challenge, other times you get lucky and they come out without a lot of effort. Okay, so once you get it pried out, that snap ring simply removes. This whole unit should just pull right out of here. Sometimes it takes a little wiggling. And there it is. This one, as you can see, is pretty well new. It failed almost immediately. So again, this is why we are swapping to the Yukon Hardcore locking hub. Now while we have all of this apart before we do our install, we're going to inspect all of these splines, check everything out in here, make sure it all looks good. We're going to clean it up a little bit, and then we're going to pack all of this as well as the outer axle stub. We're going to grease it up real good with a high pressure grease before we start installing the spring retainer, the spring itself, and the other components on the new hub. Alright, now that we've got everything in here cleaned out, inspected, all of the splines look good, now we need to take and lube up all of these splines. So we're going to take some high pressure grease. We are going to cover all of the splines on the outer as well as the stub shaft. And again, this is one of those times where it's great to have a pair of these gloves. I want to make sure everything is covered well. That way the hub mechanism locks and frees easily with good movement. Next, what we're going to do, we're going to put a spring retaining cup that goes in, and then on top of that will be a spring. Okay, now we've got the housing greased up with the high pressure grease. The outer stub is lubed. These are some of the components. We're going to start off with the retainer ring, and then the spring goes in. There are various other components that go in with the install. There's a very specific order and pattern that they go in. Yukon has made it very easy. They have included a detailed set of instructions with illustrations, so it walks you right through step by step. So anybody who wants to put a set of these in, this makes it very easy. We're just creating this video to show you how we do it, how easy it is, and why we went with the Yukon Hardcore locking hub. First to go in is our spring retainer ring. This thing has a specific fit. The flat face goes outward. So now that we've got the spring retainer in there, we have this spacer and then the spring that will go in. Next, we've got the driver and the coupler that are going to be installed. Both of these pieces need to be well covered with that high pressure grease. So we'll just go ahead and go in there, cover things on all surfaces. And it's going to be a bit messy. So again, these shop towels and work gloves come in extremely handy. Alright, now when this goes in, you just have to watch the pressure on that spring, because it's going to try and push it back out at you. Some cases you may have to have the front end off of the ground so you can rotate the tire and the axle to get things to line up properly. Okay, now that we've got that little dude on there, we've got a snap ring that we need to apply right there. This is one of those situations, if you've got an extra pair of hands, it's great. Okay, now we've got the cam spacer and the retainer plate. Those will fit together like this. The handle from the outside will catch these ears, engaging or disengaging the hub. Both the sides of these need to be lubricated with high pressure grease, so we're going to go ahead and lube those up as well. Same thing, all surfaces. Alright, and then that will go into here. All of this pushes in, and we have one more lock ring right here that we need to install. And as you go along, you want to make sure that that snap ring fully seats into that recess, holding all components in. If you need to, you can push that in a little bit, maybe take a small screwdriver and get things to line up, make sure everything is, again, fully seated. So there we have that. Next to go on, I'm going to go ahead and take these off so I can work with clean hands. We'll clean the outside of this up, and then we're going to put the cover on, so that'll be next. Okay, the final portion for the install is going to be the bezel and the selector. Those will go into place with 6 bolts. Yukon has provided nylon washers that also go on the bolts to help seal things. As you can see, there's also an O-ring on here to help protect, so you don't have to add gaskets, silicone, anything of that nature. It is on there. You do want to make sure that the selector is lined up in the lock position before the final install to align with those tabs. There should be no force needed or used. This should set in place, lock it down with the 6 bolts, and then we will do a quick test to make sure that it is functioning properly. When you tighten this down, the final torque, each of these 6 bolts should be torqued down at 22 inch-pounds. That is all information that's provided in the detailed instructions from Yukon. A lot of times people think they really need to beef things down or really tighten it up. 22 inch-pounds is not super tight, so you want to make sure you don't put too much pressure on there, damage those nylon washers, or tighten this thing down so tight that the selector doesn't move freely. Again, everything should move freely, and once we have everything in place here, torqued, we're going to test this out and make sure that it does work properly. Okay, now that we've got the bezel and the selector installed, we've torqued down all 6 bolts with the nylon washers on there to the 22 inch-pounds suggested by Yukon. We've cleaned everything up. Now we're going to test this, and by spinning the tire, since the front end is off of the ground, we can spin this tire while it's in the locked position and see that the front drive line is actually spinning, telling us that the hub is engaged and it will rotate when the vehicle is in 4-wheel drive. Now to test it and make sure that it does disengage and free flows, we just simply move it to the unlocked or free position, spin the tire again, and the front drive shaft does not move. So that confirms everything is installed properly. We've cleaned everything up. We're ready to hit the trails. We'll see you out there.